Good evening, everyone, and welcome to session 2 of the Scientific Paper Writing Workshop by IJR. Since it's time already, I'll ask Professor Vikas Agarwal to begin with the first lecture on how to write a discussion.
Good evening, everyone, and we'll be starting with where we left last week. And I think we had already discussed introduction, methods, and results. Just to very quickly recapitulate, introduction is when we identify a problem and the knowledge deficit and the reason why we should be doing this study. In the methods part, we had discussed how do we do a study, what experimental design we need to conduct for answering the question that we have generated at the end of the introduction. Results are something which you can just assume before you start a study, but what you actually get when you apply that experiment. And discussion is perhaps one of the most important part of the paper, where we discuss what all this means actually. So this is the last major section of the paper, including the conclusion. And you can say that it is the skill in writing the discussion which actually makes or breaks one's paper. If you discuss properly, then you are likely to get your paper accepted in a good journal. And this is the actually the part of the paper where you can put forth your point of view very correctly in the perspective of your experimental design and the hypothesis which you had actually concluded at the last part of the introduction. So we'll briefly say what is the relationship between introduction and discussion. Actually, introduction just introduces the subject, put forth the deficits, and finally end in a hypothesis for which the study is being planned. Whereas discussion should start from the very specific results of the study, summary of the specific results of the study, and then it can go on to discuss those results from being very specific to a general concept and as far as existing literature is concerned. We'll briefly discuss some of these important aspects. So remember that discussion is not the repetition of the introduction. And the whole purpose of discussion is to discuss whether the results which have been obtained by the experimental design that we have conducted, whether they support or they provide newer questions, or they partially support or they do not support at all the research question which was posed at the end of the introduction. So this is an opportunity to emphasize about your hypothesis or certain newer aspects of the study, maybe something which we have not thought of initially, but which has come out as a surprise, but it is important. So those important aspects of the study needs to be discussed in the discussion section. And then lastly, discussion should end in a conclusion that follow from all the results and the discussion part. And in totality, when you provide a take-home message of the study, that is what you conclude as conclusion. So most of the times people are confused what to discuss in the introduction part and what to discuss in the discussion part. This is a very common problem faced by many newer people who are writing the research paper or students when they write their first few papers. So one has to understand that the purpose of introduction is to understand the reviewer or to understand the reader what is the need of conducting the study. Whereas discussion is providing the reader with the interpretation of the results of your study and its implications. The introduction poses the research question. whereas discussion answers the research question. It may or may not support the hypothesis that is immaterial, but it is giving you an answer, whether yes or no. Then the contents of introduction is basically information about the existing current knowledge. Also, what are the knowledge gaps and why one should look at these knowledge gaps or try to bridge these knowledge gaps by putting forth newer research perspectives. And generally it ends with the hypothesis, which is the very basis of your study. Whereas discussion, on the other hand, is a summary of all the findings of your study, followed by explanation of the study findings, its comparison, whether it's strength or weakness as compared to the available evidences, and interpretation of the whole of the study or whole of the evidences, which can be rather giving a specific answer or is giving you clue for future research. So all these things should be discussed in the discussion part. One can remember that in the introduction part, the flow is from general to a very specific question. Whereas the opposite is happening in the discussion. You start with a very specific study finding, and then you go on to discuss the implication of these study findings to the general population. I'll give you some examples in between. So what should be a structure of a discussion? The first paragraph should be a statement of the principal findings, the major finding of your study or your hypothesis, followed by its strength and weaknesses as compared to the existing literature. Then, as a whole, whether there are certain strengths and limitations of your study which could have sort of come up because of this experimental design, and in future if you are asked to redesign the same study, you design it with a better strength. Lastly, you go on to discuss the actual significance of your study, whereby you try to put forth whether it has got some kind of a treatment benefit or some kind of a benefit to the policymakers, or whether it has led to certain newer questions for which future research can be conducted, so that the knowledge is enhanced. As of today, whatever existing knowledge is, you enhance the existing knowledge. So one should remember these 14 steps of writing an effective discussion. First of all, organize the discussion from very specific findings of your study to the general. That should be the basic aim. Then, second point, use the same key terms and the same verb tense. Generally, present tense should be used, and same point of view as in introduction. You can start the discussion by restating the hypothesis you are testing and what answers you have got for the questions you have posed in the end of the introduction. And it should be supported by the answers which you got in with the results of your study. Address all the results relating to the questions, whether they are significant or not. Suppose you have got 4 questions, one is a primary aim and 3 are the secondary aims, and probably your primary aim has not met the significance. State that. But if your secondary endpoints or your secondary objectives have been fulfilled, you put forth that significant. So irrespective whether your study has got some kind of a positive or negative results, you state all the results that you were looking for when you had put forth your hypothesis, and that is basically the objectives you have put at the end of the introduction. Describe the patterns, principles, and the relationships shown by each finding and put them in a perspective of the existing literature and possible implication of those results for future. I'll give you an example here. This is a paper which we published in 2010 looking at the efficacy of tadalafil in secondary Raynaud's phenomenon in scleroderma, which was resistant to vasodilator therapy. So it was a double-blind, randomized crossover study design. And we end the introduction part, as has been highlighted here in yellow, that tadalafil, we hypothesize that tadalafil improves secondary Raynaud's phenomenon, its consequences, endothelial dysfunction. Since there has been no randomized controlled trial on the efficacy of tadalafil in refractory Raynaud's as add-on therapy, therefore we designed this study to assess the efficacy of tadalafil in secondary refractory Raynaud's phenomena. After that, the method section was there. But when we started the discussion, so we put forth a concise summary of the results of the study. And that was that the results of the present study clearly demonstrate the efficacy and safety of tadalafil as add-on therapy in secondary Raynaud's phenomenon resistant to conventional vasodilators. And it not only reduced the severity of Raynaud's phenomenon, but also decreased the complications and improved the functional outcome. So this was in gist. We had put forth all the major findings of our paper in the first 3 or 4 lines of the discussion part. So once you have done that, you put forth arguments to defend your answers. While doing so, one needs to be absolutely neutral. It's not that you have done a study, so you should always have positive findings, or you should always discuss the results in terms of your hypothesis. Be neutral, discuss as if trying to find a real truth is the basic need of the your job when you are discussing that finding. You can discuss why your answer is more likely to be favoring possibility, and why other arguments which has been or which similar studies have been conducted in past are not that satisfactory. Then, if there are any, discuss and evaluate conflicting explanations of the results. Sometimes we may put forth a hypothesis, but we get in reality opposite results, which do not favor, rather which are in opposition to our hypothesis. But these also need to be discussed whatever way possible by the authors. And supposedly there are some unexpected findings. You need to discuss those. Like in this study, when we were looking for the vasodilator effect of the tadalafil, we also noticed that the skin tightness was improving, which was not something which we were looking for in this study. However, it was there. So we just put a line about mentioning about that, yeah, the patient, when they were receiving the tadalafil, their skin scores improved. Identify potential limitations and weaknesses. This is very important. Generally, when we write discussion, we write more about the strengths of the study, and we try to suppress our urge not to discuss the limitations of the study. But it is always good that if you identify the limitation yourself and discuss it out, and also propose by which way we can probably limit those limitations in future, it can help the science. Again, the same paper, when we were discussing about the limitations, we also mentioned that this study has limitations, that despite our best effort, the number of patients recruited was small since it was a single center study. Also, the duration of the study was short because in this northern part of the country, winters are small or shorter duration. So we could not have used the drug for more than 3 months. And we propose to overcome this, that long-term multicentric randomized parallel group. Ours was a crossover design, but if we use parallel group, probably it will give more variability to the subjects. So these studies are required to confirm these findings. So it's always good when you are neutral while discussing about the discussion part, and each and every finding of your study should be discussed out in that fashion. Then the 11th point is that you summarize the principal implications of your findings. So once you have summarized the results in the beginning, then towards the end, you summarize concisely what all implications or significance your study has. And based on that, you provide, possibly if there is a chance or the study is such that it can give, you can give some kind of a recommendations for future research, you should provide that. Lastly, before you write a conclusion, you should discuss how the results and the conclusions of this study are important and how they are influencing the knowledge and the understanding of the problem. Discuss everything, but be concise, brief, and very specific. So this is just a good way to go about it, that when you are writing a discussion, you should write as per the results. What was your main hypothesis or main objective? Whatever it was, you discuss that in the first paragraph. And when you are discussing that, you need to be discussing about a brief introduction, literature linked to that, and the opinions and the outcome as compared to your study. And same is true for your important results, whether result 1, 2, 3, or 4 or 5 are there, you discuss out results similarly. Lastly, you should plan to write about the limitations and what could have been done in future so that you provide a better answer. There are certain things which needs to be avoided during discussion, and that sometimes we get carried away because we have put in efforts of many weeks, months, or years while doing the study. So we are very passionate about our work, but do not over represent results. Do not speculate too much. Do not overinflate the findings. Don't go on to tangential issues which are not connected to your study and which were not your aim or objectives. Do not conclude conclusions which are not supported by the study data. So there are certain pitfalls which should be avoided during the discussion part. Do not provide or do not discuss results again in the discussion. Only a summary of the results is enough. Do not discuss any observation or any result data that you have not provided in the results section. Sometimes we do see manuscripts which come, which discuss certain findings which have never been discussed in the result, which have never been the hypothesis of the paper, but they are being discussed. So this gives a very bad impression about the researcher, whether they do not, perhaps they don't know how to write a paper. And if you have certain unexpected results, discuss them in a very brief. Do not discuss them at length, just to have a significance of your paper and something which you have not thought of or not hypothesized initially, but has been found to be significant in your paper, doesn't mean that you should be discussing that as the major finding of your paper. It is always good not to repeat things or sentences or phrases or the studies or in that context which has already been discussed in the introduction part. In the discussion part, you should be very, very focused and discussing about the results of your study compared to the other studies. Do not discuss long arguments which actually reader loses the focus and will not be able to understand easily. Many times we have seen that some of the researchers or the authors, they start discussing the historical aspects of the finding in the discussion section. It should never be done. All these should, if at all they are significant, they should be discussed in the introduction part, not in the discussion part. Don't try to put your paper as a paper which has got no weaknesses. There cannot be a paper in the world which will not have any limitations. All papers will have strengths as well as weaknesses. So it is always good that you point out the limitations of your study and discuss them accordingly. Again, do not draw conclusions which are not supported by your data, or do not overinflate the importance of your study findings. Lastly, do not speculate or be very, very hypothetical when discussing the results in the discussion section. You provide a very concise, futuristic viewpoint, that is all. But do not exaggerate and do not speculate excessively. It will bring rather discredit to you and your papers. ICMG recommendations can be followed for writing conclusions or the discussion part of the study. That link the conclusions with the goals of your study. Avoid conclusions that are not supported by the data. Distinguish between clinical and statistical significance. All statistical significance doesn't mean that they are clinically relevant. Do not provide any sweeping statements. Do not claim any priority that this is the first study in the world which has been done. Do not discuss paper or work which has never been completed or published, unless it is very important. In a one or two lines, you can discuss out that, and you can write that this is unpublished data. But generally, people don't like to publish these kind of statements. And do not state any new hypothesis unless you are proposing that results of your study are such that your hypothesis has been so and so, and a newer hypothesis could have emerged. State everything very clearly. So remember, discussion is all about perspective. You can see certain bars here, somebody may say 4 and somebody may say 3. So it's up to you how you put forth your point. I think everybody will agree that they are also finding difficulty in calculating these bars. So with this, I will conclude my discussion part. And if there are any queries, I will definitely love to answer. Thank you for your patient listening. Thanks a lot.
Thank you, Professor Agarwal. Now